Hello everyone, and thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Glovin' Paradigm. I am your host Peter, aka LPD Dubuque, and this week it's going to be a very fun week for me because this is one of those topics I've been wanting to cover for a good little while, and after getting some feedback from a couple of people who've done this themselves, I feel confident enough to actually cover it now. So first things first, I just want to get this out of the way real quick. Thank you to everyone who has been liking my channel so far. I am currently, at the time of this recording, up to 95 likes on my page. So I just want to say thank you so much for actually liking the page and liking the content that I've been creating. If it wasn't for you guys, I probably wouldn't be still doing this. So I just want to let everyone know, please try to help me out and get those 5 extra likes so I can hit 100. And with that 100 likes hitting, I will definitely be doing an Ask Me Anything episode, because I would definitely like to involve more of my listeners into the discussion and things of that nature. Therefore, there's a little bit more interaction going on. So if it would be so kind of you to just take a little bit of time of liking every post that I post and sharing it as much as possible to get me those 5 extra likes so we can start the first ever Ask Me Anything series, that would be fantastic. Now, straight to the episode. What am I going to be talking about? Well, I'm going to be talking about community building, because I know from my own experience and from a lot of other people have said through online channels that sometimes it's actually really hard to get one going. And I can definitely agree to that, considering in certain locations it's almost impossible to do, surely just because of the sheer density of the population. Probably is not as very helpful, or even the people within the community that you live in probably is not as accepting or as willing to undertake something as gloving. Whatever the case may be, you know, I definitely feel your pain, because I've lived in plenty of different sizes of towns. I lived in a big city like Phoenix. I lived in a smaller city where, like I'm currently am in Reno, which, you know, is known as the biggest, smallest city out there, or the smallest, biggest city, whichever they go about it. I don't really know. It's kind of confusing as it is. But I've lived in places like Albuquerque, where it's nice and big and you can actually find a good amount of people. And I've lived in places as small as Carlsbad, New Mexico, where, you know, you can literally drive through the entire town in a matter of 5 minutes and not even notice it, type deal. You know, so I've been on all ends of the spectrum when it comes to population and community building in that sense. So what I would like to do is try to pretty much help people understand what it is when it comes to a community, how to build one, how to maintain it, and some ideas to help you if a community is just unattainable in your area. Okay, so first things first, what is the purpose of building a community? Well, there's a whole plethora of reasons, but the big ones that always stick out to me the most is growth. Now, what I mean by growth is that you're actually able to communicate with like-minded people in person, which to me I find the most invaluable interaction you can have is being in front of another person and, you know, just conversing with them. You're not having that whole delay of distances and online stuff and, you know, technology and all that crap. You know, so having people in front of you and conversing with them and consorting with them on certain topics and certain moves and combinations and what have you is going to be exponentially beneficial for you as well as other people you are conversing with. Another huge thing, and I find this probably one of the biggest, most monumental things when it comes to having a community, is the social aspect. I know some people say that it's kind of hard for them to open up and be social. However, I feel when you're in a community with like-minded people who pretty much kind of come from the same background as you, it's a lot easier for you to open up. I can certainly agree to that, and, you know, I can even testify with my younger brother, who has much more antisocial skills than I am. If it wasn't for me getting him into gloving, he probably wouldn't be as social as he is now. There's so many things that the social aspect really brings into focus for you as an individual as well as you as a group. Okay, and I find that just so paramount above anything else when it comes to having a community. Okay, and of course the last thing I do consider very important is that sense of security, where you're able to meet up with a bunch of people who very much are like-minded like you, of course, and that you have that sense of security where you're allowed to pretty much express yourself through the art of gloving to other people who like to express themselves through the art of gloving. And you have that sense of security where you can actually speak with these people about topics in gloving that you don't really have to feel like you're being, lack of a better phrase, persecuted, or just having a negative reaction from the community type deal. Usually when you have a very small knit group, it usually helps. A bigger group tends to be a little less supportive because of different thoughts and different aspects that go on. I can go on and on about that whole thing, but I feel like I'll be just detracting from the topic. So those are the three major things for me when it comes to having a community: is the growth that you and other people will have, the social aspect, which is absolutely important in my book, because as everybody who listens to me regularly, you guys know that I'm a huge Magic the Gathering fan, and one of the biggest things I love about playing Magic the Gathering is the social aspect, is that you're sitting in front of another person at a table, playing a game that you both thoroughly enjoy, and then having conversations after you guys play the game, thus, furthering your understanding about the game or what have you. The same thing can be applied to gloving, okay? And that's probably one of the big things for me, is just having that social aspect, because you're not forcing yourself to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. You're going to a place where there's other people who like the things that you like, so that icebreaker moment is kind of there. You're there to enjoy gloving. Those people are there to enjoy gloving. There shouldn't be any ice in between everyone that they have to break. Of course, granted, introducing yourself and things like that can be a little trying, but there are ways to get around that. A good example is having name tags, but some people don't like doing that, and I totally understand why, but just putting that stuff out there for you guys, okay? So, ways to actually build a community. Well, the first thing I do want to disclose is that there is something that Amazing Lice does have, which is called the Global Gloving Network, or GGN for short. What this service provides is you can actually go on there and look in your local area to see if there's any gloving communities out there. Now, when you actually go onto this portion of their website and actually look at the map, you're going to see a bunch of green dots and a yellow dot, okay? So the green dots is representing the very thriving community. It's very strong, it's very active, and the yellow ones are the ones that are trying to get going, are not quite there yet, okay? So if you're somebody like me who's like in Reno, Nevada, I'm in a yellow spot, so it's trying to develop, but it hasn't developed yet. Okay, but if you're in a place like Las Vegas, or most of the places in California, or even Phoenix, Arizona, those are thriving, active communities. So you definitely have that as a good, pretty much starting point. Now, if you're in an area where you don't have that going on, you could definitely start one by being a community leader. They do have applications on their website, so you can get one going. So you have that as pretty much a good, streamlined way to get things started, okay? I definitely just wanted to put that out there so you guys know about it. So you do have that. But if you do have a few people who do want to explore more into gloving and deal with that kind of stuff, you have one most important thing you need to find is a location for you guys to meet up. Now, there have been different ways that people have gone through this, okay? So one great example is a school club. I can't remember exactly where, I just know it's in California. I don't want to say it's Los Angeles, but it could be. There is a school club that has been started at a university called Ambience. And it's basically a gloving club where people can actually go to learn how to glove and learn different techniques and learn all these different aspects about gloving, as well as meeting up with people who also want to learn how to glove and being able to trade and do all that stuff. It's probably one of the easiest ones I've seen people do, is just start a school club. And I can certainly tell you this is at a university. If you're somebody who's under the age of 18, you can try to get it started at your local high school if you wanted to. Whatever the case may be for your situation, a school will actually be quite helpful. It's a location where you can all meet and you can all disperse from there, and so on and so forth. Okay. Another great one that I've seen people do is public parks. Pretty much public places is pretty much what you want to look at, right? Usually a park. If you're going to do a park, I will certainly say be mindful of the surrounding area. So you don't want to do it at a park that's in the middle of a neighborhood, because as part of gloving, you gotta play some music, and sometimes you gotta play a little bit loud. So to be conservative or be conscientious about the neighboring area. You don't want to put yourself in the middle of a park that's in the middle of a neighborhood where you're going to get noise complaints. Okay, I'll certainly tell you from my experience, a great place that I used to hang out with a lot of people was at my local high school park. And the reason why is because it wasn't near or inside a neighborhood. Yes, there were neighborhoods nearby. However, they were just far enough where I can actually play music and not have those noise complaints. Now, granted, a school park is going to have time limitations in terms of curfew. However, to me, that was okay, because if you met a little bit before the sun went down, you just had enough lighting where your lights weren't going to be completely washed out by the sun, but you were able to play music and you were able to pretty much express yourself and do what all you guys need to do, mingle, what have you. And then everybody went home at the end of the day when the park was actually closing down. Okay, so a school club would work, a public park would work. One of the other things that I will say that I find to be way more difficult is finding an establishment to do that. Now, I don't even know where to begin when it comes to an establishment, but I can understand to a lot of people how it's going to be very, very difficult to actually find one. And I don't blame you. Just from what people have said about trying to host a boss, it is really, really difficult to find the establishment to do that with. So just using one to have a community hangout is going to be difficult in my opinion. However, I will certainly tell you perseverance is going to be the key in this sense, because if you really, really want to get a community started and you have people who want to be in part of your community, then you got to just keep pushing yourself and keep trying to find that place so you guys can. Okay. And the last thing that I put, it's kind of like a slash to the establishment, but I put an asterisk next to it, and that's somebody's home. The main reason why I have an asterisk next to it is because not everybody who lives in that residence is going to be kind of okay with it. Like, for example, I would love to do that with my own home so I can, build a community, but I don't think my husband's going to be really keen on having just a bunch of random people show up at the house and do that. Now, I can certainly say that I can use my garage because I have a garage. And I can do that. However, he likes to keep his car in the garage, so I can see where the space limitation will come into play. Also, Reno does get up to like 90 degrees during the summer, so I wouldn't want to put them in a giant clam baking box that is the garage, So there are difficulties when it comes to somebody's home. But if you do have somebody who's willing to open up their home for that kind of gathering, kudos to them and kudos to you. You got somebody who's willing to support you in that sense. I can just certainly see a lot of friction happening when it comes to that amongst the residents. So do keep that in mind. And if somebody is willing to do that, please be at least respectful about their home. It's their home and they're opening it up to you guys. So, the least you can do is be respectful, clean up after yourself, and make sure that if anything needs to be done, that you're willing to help. It's a complicated thing in my opinion, so it's one of those things I would say as a last resort, but I've seen people do that. So, just keep that in mind. Okay. Now, when it comes to having the community pretty much build itself up by getting people in, what are the things that you're going to do to help the community do what it needs to do? Okay. So the activities that I kind of written down, you can pretty much go with which one you want, especially if the community that you're building is much leaning towards one thing or another. Okay, so of course this is probably going to happen in any community, and that's lessons and practice. Okay, so you can teach people who want to get into gloving by teaching them the basics and teaching them the fundamentals. You can also tell them about the other resources that they can find a plethora online through tutorials or even podcasts such as myself in the Gloving Nucleuses podcast. You got resources like that to help them learn, and being able to have that one-on-one time with a person who's trying to learn is going to be very invaluable to them, because now they're getting that one-on-one time as it is. Okay, another thing that I definitely want to kind of convey that I know some people might get confused by, but kind of follow with me on this, is playing games. No, I'm not saying you should meet up and then play Fortnite, because that defeats the purpose. You'd much rather have just a Fortnite night, which I know sounds weird, or PUBG, whatever game you play. That's not what I'm talking about. There are games that glovers do play. There is Glove, which, if you don't know what it is basically horse but with gloving. Okay, so I know Amazing Lights have done this a couple times. They actually did a couple videos. So if you want to get a much more in-depth view of what glove is. I highly recommend checking that stuff out because it's very important. But basically, to give you a gist of it, is one glover does X amount of moves, so like a 5-step move, and the other person has to copy the move that they did verbatim. What this provides is actually a way of teaching somebody in the context of a game. Okay, now if the other person is unable to replicate the moves that the person has introduced, then they get a letter. So in this case, it'll be G, and if you spell out the whole word glove, you lose. Okay, I find this to be a very fun exercise because you are allowing yourself to use the basics to see if basically your opponent is paying attention in terms of the basics, and then you also are allowed to throw them curveballs to see if they're able to adapt. Okay, so that's one of the things that I definitely would highly recommend, is actually using the game of glove as another way of teaching people, because you can throw little surprise curves and see if they can get it. Now, I can understand when certain people might say that that might be a little deterrent. It shouldn't be a deterrent. It should actually encourages you to adapt and innovate in that sense. Okay, because not only that, if they throw you a curveball and you're unable to do it, you're still able to throw them a curveball and see if they can get it, you know, especially if you're someone who's on pretty much the same level as each other. Another game that a lot of people like doing, though, is what they call tabletopping or tabletop gloving, which is, I know this is going to be kind of confusing, but kind of just bear with me. So it's you and another glover facing each other, and you're basically working off of each other in terms of movements. So a very common thing you'll see is people doing a lot of tutting. So, you know, somebody puts their hands in their positions and the other person is going to work around the positions that they're working, and then pretty much signal you a cue for you to go, and then you're going to do your thing, and it's going to be this back and forth. What this allows is, one, adaptability, so you can pretty much improvise on the spot. Two, it allows concept creation to happen, because you're going to see things that you're going to be doing, then you'll be like, hey, I actually really like that, maybe I can replicate that into my own show. So it's going to help you pretty much devise new ideas, new concepts, and things like that. Not only that, you're also going to be trying to adapt to what other people are doing. This also facilitates into that whole double, triple show thing that people like doing a lot. But you have those two. Those are pretty much the two games that I can think of right off the top of my head, as well as what I've been seeing around. So you do have those. Another thing that is pretty much the classic case when it comes to a community and how, you know, in terms of activity, is just trading shows or even doing mock competitions. Now, I can understand certain people are probably going to yell at me for even suggesting that. However, I am never going to be the type of person to tell somebody not to do that. If they want to go into the competitive scene, I encourage going to the competitive scene. If that's something that you want to do with gloving, then do it. You know, no one should tell you that it's wrong if it's something you want to do, okay? And I can understand that some people are going to be like, well, you're not going to have enough people to do it because maybe you only have 8. To me, 8's enough. You know, having 8 competitors is enough to have a competition, okay? You know, and that's just from my experience in playing in Magic the Gathering. You know, you only need 8 people to do a draft. And so, why can't you just have 8 people minimum to do a little mock tournament? Now, I can certainly agree that, yes, you're probably going to have a hard time having judges to do all that stuff. However, I don't think you need to do a full-fledged competition. What I mean by mock competitions is that you just kind of have the setup happen. You don't necessarily need judges. You're kind of just exposing them to the format of what a competition is, okay? Now, if you have 8 people who are wanting to compete in this mock competition, there you go. You have pretty much, you know, just exposing them to that whole competition, getting them used to the idea that they only get 90 seconds or 2 minutes, depending on where they are in the competition. But at the end of the day, the competition shouldn't be like this super serious, high-stakes thing. It should be purely just for fun, in my opinion. You know, you're exposing them to the format so they can become familiar with the format. Now, if you do have a group of people who want to take competition much more seriously, then you can probably start actually innovating a much more serious style of a competition. But that's all depending on how your community is, okay? So those are pretty much ideas in terms of activities to do that. Now, getting a community going is one thing, but keeping it going is a completely different animal. All right, so what are pretty much easy ways to kind of sustain your community from falling apart and dismantling itself? Well, meeting routinely is going to be pretty much the major thing. So what a lot of people like doing is anywhere from once a week to maybe once every 2 weeks, okay? It all really depends on the people in your community and their schedules and things of that nature. I will certainly tell you this: if you are somebody who just can't make it and doesn't go, do not feel bad. Okay, life happens, things happen, things take priority. So if something has a higher priority in your life that you need to take care of before you can actually go back and do the whole community routinely thing, go and take care of that first. There is no obligation for you to keep going to these community meetups if you have something much more pressing on you, okay? And no one should be pressuring you to be going if you have much bigger things going on that you need to take care of, okay? But meeting routinely is going to be one huge step, okay? I would probably say anywhere from a week to every 2 weeks is going to be good. It all really depends on how your community is. I will certainly tell you, when I was meeting up with my younger brother and all my friends, and we would meet every Saturday, so it was once a week. I would check up on their progress. They'll be asking me questions of how to do things. I'll be showing them how to do things, or what I've learned, or how to tackle a certain concept. That's pretty much how it was. It was once a week. We'll all meet up, and then we talked through phones throughout the week. But when it really came down to it, it was every Saturday. That's when everything got really serious for them, and they were really getting gung-ho on it. So it all depends on what works for you guys. Now, it doesn't have to be a Saturday, it doesn't have to be a Sunday. I can understand if those are the best days to do it on, but you don't have to do that. Now, you don't even have to do it just once a week. You can even do one twice a week. You can have one big one on the weekend, and then you can have a small one in the midweek, like on a Wednesday at a park. That's one of the things I kind of want to try to convey, is that you don't have to have these set structures. Your structures can actually adapt to everyone's schedule. So that's something you always want to keep in mind, okay? And also, having multiple days during the week to meet up gives other Glovers opportunities to meet up. You know what I mean? So if you have just one week and one person's like, well, I can never make it because of work or whatever, if you have one midweek that they're able to go to, then you're at least providing them an opportunity to meet other Glovers and grow the community as a whole. Okay. Another thing that will probably help you sustain your community is actually raising money to sustain the community. For example, what I probably would try doing is like buying products on wholesale, like Gatorade bottles or snacks or whatever, and then just kind of selling them to the people who are there. One, you're raising money for the community to sustain itself, and two, maybe you're kind of crowdfunding to send a bunch of people to an event. Or in my personal case, I would do more of a local event so you can actually send more people and make it a lot easier. But raising money and crowdfunding is also going to help your community, because you can actually help people who can't get into an event to get into the events. That's just another thing that you can probably do, is just host your own events. If you're somebody who likes making music, you can be the DJ at that event and do that. Or again, hosting your own comps if you want to do that. Like little mini bosses. That was a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing, but it was a huge thing. You can also do online comps if you want. It's all up to you. But also just telling people that you're hosting these meetups on a regular does help bring more people in. Things of that nature. When it comes to sustaining community, you do have those ideas. Now, there are plenty more ideas. You can always ask around. I can certainly tell you I'm not probably the best person for that kind of resource, but I'm doing my best. Okay? And ways to actually grow a community is going to be a huge thing, okay? So starting a group page is probably going to be a good one. I have been considering actually starting a group page for people who live in small towns and can't actually have a local community. That way they actually have a place to go to speak with other people who are in their similar situations, that they can actually grow with each other, if that makes any sense. And going to local events is going to be a great way to grow your community, because you're going to meet people who might not even know about the community. Then you get to tell them about it and they get to join, so on and so forth. Just a beautiful magic happening. And of course, encouraging your members who are in your community to recruit other people that are in your community. That's going to be also pretty much an easy way. If you encourage your members to try to bring in new members, that's always going to work. One thing I do definitely want to kind of depart on is in the situation where a community is unattainable. Okay, I can certainly tell you that from my own experience, it was very difficult to do it for me, because when I lived in Carlsbad, the community inside the town was not very, as I probably would put it, accepting of the art form. A lot of, it's just the demographic there was not, as I can probably put it, forgiving or lenient to the gloving community, mostly just because most of them were were oil-filled roughnecks and everybody just liked drinking a lot. So unfortunately, it was just that kind of community was not very supportive of something like that. So to those people who are in that kind of situation, I definitely feel your pain. Is probably one of the biggest social black holes that you can put yourself into, is when you're in a situation like that. However, I do want to try to help and fix that. I'll give you a little bit more details in a minute. But when it comes to having no community being obtainable in your area, you do have online. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, but the online community is terrible, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I know there are some bad eggs in the community, okay? That is the essence of the internet. Where there are good people, there are going to be trolls. Like, that is just the nature of the internet, and there's not much more you can actually do about that. I do apologize for those type of people being like that, but it's just something that you're going to have to work around, okay? So reaching out in groups is going to be a good one. There are plenty of groups now. You have the Glovers Lounge, you have Art of Gloving, you have Glovers United, you have the Worldwide Gloving Group. You know, you have stuff like that where you can actually converse with people and reach out to them. You know, post videos, ask for criticism, things of that nature. Most of the time, people are going to be very, very understanding and be very informative, as well as some other people are going to give you the foreign letter response of either get good, slow down, here's my code, blah, 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 blah. I can go on and on. But if you're asking properly, you're probably going to find the people that are going to help you the most, okay? And communicating as much as possible is going to be a huge help for you. Okay, I can certainly tell you, being the only person in the town that only gloves is really, really disheartening, but that should not discourage you from continuing, okay? That's one of the huge things that I definitely want to express, is that communication is going to help you the most, because it's going to put you out there more, and so people are going to know you more, alright? And of course, starting a group page for your local area is always going to be a good one, especially if you have a good amount of people who are there. You know, sometimes it can fall apart. If you're diligent enough in keeping it going, then you shouldn't have an issue. Okay? And of course, in real life, being the type of person who's kind of stuck in that situation where you just can't have a local community grow, traveling to events is probably going to be your next best thing, or even going to meetups that are close by. Now, I can certainly tell you, when I was living in Carlsbad, New Mexico, it would take me probably an average of 3 hours to 4 hours to get to the closest spot that, you know, Glovers were very thriving and very active. And I can understand how that's just not possible, especially when it comes to funding. But it is something that you can do seldomly, and it allows you to be able to connect with people, okay? I can certainly say that even for somebody like myself, it would be difficult to travel because, well, one, I just really don't like spending a lot of money because I'm just that kind of frugal person. But if it's something I'm really, really dedicated to myself to do so, I will. So definitely keep that in mind. You have those. But probably the best one, if you're somebody who wants to try to conserve money, is just going through the online groups. I will certainly say Glovers United and Worldwide Gloving Group are the newest groups that have popped up, and there is a lot of communication. You know, they have a lot of chats for what they like to call the lab, so you can actually learn more and converse with people more. You know, there are ways to help you. So that's pretty much all I have written down on my episode. That's pretty much as much information I can give out as possible without pulling stuff out of my butt, and I really don't like doing that, because if I do that, I feel like I'm giving out wrong information, and if I'm getting out wrong information, I'm leading people in the wrong direction, so on and so forth, and it just does not look good. So I really hope that this episode really helped you out. You can actually help me out by doing simple things that take just a little bit of your time, by either liking the episode, liking the page, sharing the page to other people so people know that I'm here. It's literally no cost to you. It is all free for you to do. It's just a little bit of your time to help me out. If there's any questions you guys have that were not covered in this episode, there are multiple places that you can actually hit me up at. First of all, I do have a Facebook page, which is aptly named The Gloving Paradigm. You can hit me up there, message me through that. If you want to just keep it on a one-on-one basis, I'm totally okay with that. You can also hit me up at my email, which is muttonchopguy@gmail.com. If you wanted to keep it in that sense, that's totally fine with me. I'm also on Reddit, which is under the username Mutton Chop Guy, of course. So if you want to talk to me there on Reddit, you can. And of course, I do have a Discord server, which I'm still trying to get it off the ground. I know I'm terrible at this stuff. I really am. If you actually know how to help me get this going much better, that would be awesome. But the link to that will be in this episode's description, so you can hit me up there. Once again, I would like to thank everybody who's liked the page so far. I'm very, very happy to see that this page is growing, as it's very slow, but you know what? Slow growth is better than no growth at all, in my opinion. So thank you to everybody who's liked the page. Please try to help me out by getting up to those 100 likes so I can have my first Ask Me Anything. And I mean literally anything. It doesn't have to be gloving related. It's just a way for you guys to get to know me more by actually asking me the questions you feel like asking me. But that's pretty much all for my episode. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and I'll see you guys all next week.